Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk Podcast, where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and it's my job to dark and know things.
Is dark a verb?
Yeah, I just use it in a sentence.
Just because you use it as a verb doesn't mean it is a verb.
Yeah, but I couldn't use it. I couldn't use it that way if it wasn't the case.
Oh.
And that's the knowledge that I have of dark. Some would say I have dark knowledge, specifically.
You do.
You know, like you might have other like you have like a science knowledge.
I think I have
a dark knowledge.
I think I have like 15 dark knowledge. I mean, just saying.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I think it's a really great episode, though, coming up for it. And I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. But before we get into the card, which is a total surprise and nobody knows what it is because it's not even the title of the episode. Anyways, over here we got some ways that you guys can keep us in your life. We have a blog. Matt over at the blog tries to keep up with everything that we do here at the pod, although it's sometimes impossible when the gang's all here, like Ted and Grant. So, he does what he can, though. He does a great job reviewing cards, one card at a time. Then we have Micah, who plays our live feed on the YouTube channel, Second Breakfast. He enjoys what he does over there, building decks and challenging you guys out there, doing deck building things. And then we have email address if you want to get a hold of any of these two guys, or I guess Grant's down here and Ted's over there. I don't know, wherever everybody ends up being after post-production here. It's going to be, if you want to get a hold of any of us, or Micah or Matt, cardtalk2018@gmail.com. And then if you are like what we do, you want to help us keep the lights on here, we have a small but dedicated group of patrons that help us keep everything going over here.
They know.
They know who they are. Yeah, they're good folk. So
they're not kept in the dark.
They are not kept in the dark, and they have all the knowledge of the show that they need. So you guys can join that by going over to patreon.com/cardtalk2018. So, Grant, what card do we have today? It's a big surprise, I know.
Yeah, going back to the core set for the one cost attachment, Dark Knowledge. Condition.
Dark knowledge.
Attached hero gets -1 willpower, but with a response, exhaust Dark Knowledge to look at one shadow card that was just dealt to an enemy attacking you.
Yeah. I'll start. I don't usually start. I usually just kind of.
Dave, I was thinking that maybe you could start us off.
So, for anybody who is out there who is new and playing the game, like, I have just been recently teaching a friend of mine to play, and I actually put this card onto Gimli from the core set. Usually when I teach people how to play, we just play with the core set. I play with their core set. I don't say, hey, come over to my house and play with all my little gadgets and gizmos and stuff. We usually play with their core set so that they have the cards and they know what they're doing with their own cards and things. And so I put Dark Knowledge onto Gimli from the core set. And I'll tell you what, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, you didn't hate it. Yeah.
It's, Gimli's one of those weird 2/2/2 with 5 hit point things, but Gimli is going to be the guy that's going to attack most of the time. He gets a little bit of damage on him. There's some natural synergies with Gimli and the lore sphere with the healing and the things like that, so he can, not die when he takes undefended attacks. He gets a couple of Citadel plates on him. There's all sorts of things he can do with Gimli, but you put Dark Knowledge on him, and now, you can look. You can look at I don't know why it's a response. That's the only thing that, I guess you could just look at the. You could just look at the card whenever you want to. I don't know.
No, it's when the shadow card's been dealt, you've got the response.
The response to the right. Okay. So the point is that you can look at the shadow card and decide who you want to defend it, whether Gimli can handle the amount of damage that's coming your way from that enemy, and then you still have to deal with it, but knowing what's coming. Having the knowledge of that card that's in the dark, perfectly named card, by the way. I think that this is a very... Let me back off of that for a second. This card is better than you would think it is because there's very few player cards that give you minus to a stat, but give you a bonus otherwise. So, I don't know. Grant, what do you think of Dark Knowledge?
Dark Knowledge for me is decent. I don't think it's the best card out there by a long shot. There are so many other cards that do this maybe in a better way, like the Silver Lamp, which gives you, as long as your Spirit Hero is ready, you get to see all shadow cards dealt to you. Then you've got Burn and Brand, where you just straight up cancel a shadow effect triggered by exhausting it.
Right. Jabire gets rid of shadow cards.
But
Gandalf's staff gets rid of shadow cards.
But for this early in the campaign, I've used it a few times, but I wasn't necessarily overwhelmed by it. I mean, it was useful, but it wasn't striking me as, wow, I'm going to put this in every deck.
Ted, what do you think of Dark Knowledge?
It's an effect that's good to have. And knowledge of shadow cards is really great when you're taking undefended attacks. And usually when you're calculating which enemies are going to be attacking you, you want to take undefended attacks. You want to take the lowest strength enemy. And sometimes they can have shadow effects, that really wrench your plans. And it's a strong effect to just know what that is. So as that enemy is getting dealt a shadow card, you're like, all right, I'm going to take a peek at that. And to have that attachment, you can do it every single turn for cost of 1. Yeah, you do get the -1 willpower, but what's really interesting about this card is it's attached to a hero, but it's not limit 1 per hero. So you could have 3 Dark Knowledges attached to the same hero, and you can't have negative willpower. It doesn't exist. So even if they have a base of 0, you can just stack these on them, and they just continue. If you boost their willpower, yes, that's negative counts against it, but whatever. So if I was going to run this, I'd run 3. You might as well, and then you just stack it on the same hero. And typically, you're going to have heroes that are devoted to attacking or defending, and they don't generally need willpower in most circumstances. So the penalty is not that big for, I think, a pretty good benefit.
Right. Okay, well, what I will say is there was only 1 of this in the original core set. It got changed to 3 of in the revised core set.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that makes a difference too, because then you could only run 1 back in the day. But if you're a new player jumping in, you could have up to 3 copies in your deck, and I think maybe 2 is a good number. But Grant also brought up a really good point that I think this card quickly got outshadowed by Burning Brand, because it was in the same sphere. And Burning Brand let you just cancel a shadow card outright, even though it was restricted to a lore character. But the thing is, like, you're playing, you usually had a lore character to put Burning Brand on if you had access to lore to pay for Dark Knowledge. But there's really no reason you can't run both. This has the benefit too of not being restricted, and it
Yeah,
can go. It can go on anyone.
but what I will also say is, since Burning Brand has been a rot ad, I could see a potential use for Dark Knowledge and Burning Brand.
Yeah, Burning Brand is now restricted, and you have to exhaust it. So you can only do it one time.
Yeah.
No canceling every shadow card.
That was, oh boy, was that fun back in the day before the before that errata came out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is I think that this card, I think you need to play it. You need to play this card on somebody who is going to be defending or taking some undefended attacks.
You don't even need to play it on that character, though. You could literally play it on a hero that's questing.
On a hero that doesn't quest. You want to put it on like Yorith from the, or not Yorith, but you want to put it on an MOTK hero that's not going to be questing.
But yeah, what I'm getting at is you don't necessarily need it on the character defending or anything to do with combat, because of the fact that it's just a shadow card that's been dealt to you that you get to see.
Right. Yep. It can be on any hero that's
Yeah. Or plan on someone else's hero to reduce their willpower. Be like, you know what, Kieran? You're worth a little less willpower now because you have Dark Knowledge.
I mean, if I'm playing Spirit and Lore, I'd probably go for Silver Lamp over Dark Knowledge, but that's probably because it shows you all the shadow cards rather than just one, and you don't get the reduced willpower.
Right.
Yeah. So Silver Lamp is I love Silver Lamp, and it's, even though it has its stipulation to it, and costs one more. But the thing is about Dark Knowledge too is it's still limited to an enemy that you're engaged with that is attacking you. And I really wish it didn't have that restriction. I wish you could peek at any shadow card anywhere in the table at like another player. I think that would make it more versatile. So that's why like Silver Lamp is a really good comparison, because they're both restricted. But it's, and if you're David, I think you're right too. I think this is especially, I think all cards you should try playing it, right? Just like see if it ends up leaving your hand or the impact it has. And this card especially so, because I think people will, again, once they kind of see it in action, they'll be like, oh, wow, that was really helpful.
Right. Anytime you can know what's coming on to plan for it, like that's the thing. And then you can decide if you need to hold back a resource for hasty stroke, or, and the response isn't a combat response. It's just whenever an enemy gets a shadow card. So, like it can be an out of phase attack that the enemy takes. It could, like it's just whenever. So just go ahead and do it.
Even though you can't stop the effect, the knowledge of what the effect is will change your plan. You might pick a completely different defender, or pick to take it undefended because of whatever the effect is.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but you have two shadow effects that were really horrible, but you only had one hasty stroke in your hand, so you canceled like the wrong one, and then the second one went off. Do something like this, and at least what the shadow effect is, and if you have two of them, what two shadow effects are, and you can plan better, right? It's the not knowing part. Anytime you can reduce this game down to math the game, is makes it advantage player. So I don't know. So I will say that I don't necessarily love this card, but I like it enough that in a shadow control deck that has like MOTK Jabire and Gandalf with his staff and hasty strokes and things like that. Like, I'm this card is good. This card is good for that.
Yeah, I think it pairs especially well. Like you said, knowing the card even just to cancel it is good. So, for example, if you have Hero Erkenbrand on the table, his ability is that when he defends, he can take a point of damage to cancel a shadow effect.
Right.
And you might look at a shadow effect, and it might be something really detrimental that might be like exhaust a character, or if this attack is undefended, it gets +3, like some really terrible effect. And you'd be like, all right, Erkenbrand is going to defend that attack.
Right.
Just so he can cancel the card. And knowing that helps you plan your whole turn.
Yep. I don't know if this is a general use, core set staple card, but I think people need to play this card. I think it definitely needs to get played. Well, what about the art?
I think, the art's cool. It's always given me this like it's in like a dark alley, and there's this source of light like behind this person, which to me always looked like a hobbit.
Right.
But like who's on the ground?
It's an orc of some sort.
Okay, that would
you see the two eyes, and it's kind of laying like this.
Yeah, and there's some other shadows
in the back.
Here. Yeah. So it's in like the image itself is even though the image itself is pretty intriguing, because you're like, where is all this light coming from? Right, like there's just darkness that they're staring into, but there's all this light behind them, and it doesn't look like a flame. I don't know. It's I don't understand it fully, and that's why I'm intrigued by it.
It's a fluorescent light. Spotlight.
I'm thinking the Mines of Moria.
Right. It's the moonlight from the entry of the Mines of Moria somehow.
It's Aragorn where he's just finished slaying one of the goblins, or knocked a goblin on his ass.
Right. It's in a pool of blood, so I would assume he's dead. But yeah, that's always what I've kind of assumed it to be, was Aragorn killing a thing. But then the quote, the flavor text says Frodo. So I don't know, but I think it's good artwork.
It's Frodo and Strider.
That's true. Yeah. Too many dark things, said Strider. Yeah. I don't know. I like it. It's not the best in the game, but it's not the worst. Some of the first cycle stuff is not great, but so should we ring this guy?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know or may have forgotten, or maybe this is your first episode, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we ring a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card to rule them all, or one of the best cards in the game, and a 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it came, or not a very good card in the game. So, let's see. Grant, I think you're up first.
Well, for all the reasons we've said, I don't really play it because I think there's better options out there. I'm going to give it a 7 rings.
7. And so, me. I like this card, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily as useful. I think that there's way better options for shadow control. When we did a show recently, Grant and I did at least, on hasty stroke. And so, like, there's a lot of elegant ways to deal with shadow. This doesn't even deal with the shadow card. It just kind of lets you have the knowledge of the shadow card, which is powerful. So I think that this card quickly gets replaced with other things, and sometimes people don't do anything with shadow effects. They're just like, well, whatever it is, and that's just the way it's going to be. It's one of those things in the game that I think doesn't necessarily, in a lot of times, doesn't require, a workaround. So I like the card. I think it's better than what I originally thought. I think if you would have asked me before I played it, I would have been like, this is a 10, no reason to play it. But I think that there are some times when you can play this card and get some benefit out of it. So I'm going to give it like an 8. So, Ted, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to give it a 6 because it's you outlined a pretty good reason that there's better effects, and dealing with it is nice, but there's it's another tool in your toolbox to help manage these kinds of effects, and there's not a ton of them out there for these type of. If you pair this card with other types of scrying effects, where you're scrying the deck on top of scrying shadow cards, it kind of follows that type. It can really add up to your amount of knowledge in the game. It can be very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, well, everybody, there you have it. Dark knowledge. And so join us again next week as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.